G'day folks, Costo here once again as the host of Bushbeat, where our focus of course is country rugby league, unashamedly. From Gundagai to Gordon Vale and Colliambley to Cairns. Great to have you with us. In this episode you'll hear from the one-time Kangaroo who's just had premiership success in Bundaberg, plus a very happy man out of the New England and New South Wales where his team, the Inverell Hawks, has been celebrating and for good reason. But before that, our statewide wrap for New South Wales. Plus, in the ACT, the Canberra Raiders Cup and the George Took Shield. That's next on Bushbeat. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com. Now our New South Wales scoreboard. Firstly, as usual, Newcastle. Last weekend, the Denton Cup action continued with week 1 of the finals. On Saturday, we had number 2, Cessnock versus number 3, Wyong. And it was the Goannas who prevailed 26-12 in the qualifying final. And then we had the number 4 team up against the number 5 team. In sudden death, Western Suburbs, who finished in 4th place, edging out the entrance 16-14, which means the Tigers are gone for season 2025. Maitland, as the minor premiers, had the weekend off, but this Saturday we see the Pickers in action when they host Cessnock. Kick-off is 3 o'clock, with the winner advancing to the GF. And then on Sunday, Wyong at home to the Rosellas, with the loser finish for the season. Again, that game starts at 3 o'clock. In Group 21, last weekend, the minor premiers, Greta Branxton, the Colts, they were seeking redemption after bombing out in week 1 of the playoffs. And in the preliminary final against the Thoroughbreds, the Colts got the job done. 32-20 over Scone. So Greta now through to the grand final against Singleton. That game to be played at Pertec Park this Sunday. Kick-off is 2:30. In Group 4 last weekend, the preliminary final at Kitchener Park where Gunnedah hosted Werris Creek. Full-time score, Bulldogs 44, Magpies 26. So Gunnedah through to the decider against the minor premiers and defending champions, the Moree Boars. That game to decide the Whitehaven Premiership. It'll be played this Saturday at Moree. Kick-off is 3 o'clock. In Group 19 last weekend, grand final day at Inverell's Varley Oval, where the minor premiers and hot favourites Inverell, the Hawks, they took on Tingha Tigers. Full-time score, Inverell 22, Tingha 12. For the Hawks, their first grand final win in almost a decade. And coming up later in the show, we'll hear from the premiership-winning coach of the Hawks, Jamie McCormack. In the Northern Rivers, last weekend, 2 elimination finals. Bilambil wiped out visiting Casino 46-0 and Murwillumbah winning 28-22 at Ballina. So goodbye to both the Cougars and the Gulls. In Group 2 last weekend, the Seahorses reloaded for the Roosters in what they called a qualifying final, but we actually called it a preliminary final, like most people. And it was Nambucca who prevailed, 32-28 at Woolgoolga. A huge disappointment, I've got to say, for the locals. And conversely, a massive result for the Roosters. Nambucca to now take on Sawtell in the GF, which is this coming Sunday at Coffs from 3 o'clock. And worth noting that the Seahorses were the minor premiers. In fact, they finished 7 points clear after losing just the one game during the regular season, but of course, we won't be seeing them on grand final day. Good luck to both teams for Sunday. In Group 3, last weekend's finals matches, Warhope 32-24 over Wingham and then Olbar 28-6 over Macleay Valley. Coming up on Saturday, the Mustangs host the Blues at 3 o'clock. That is sudden death, by the way. And then on Sunday from 2:45, Port Mac Sharks, well, they need to look out for Blackbeard. Why? Well, because they're home to the Pirates. And I'm sure Olbar will come there with big intentions. The winner, of course, going straight into the season finale. That should be most interesting, to say the least. On the Central Coast last weekend, the last round before the finals, Wyong turned Terrigal into Gummy Shark. 66-6 the final score. Toukley wiped out Arimba 52-0. Erina won 34-22 at the entrance. And Woy Woy 64-12 over Berkeley Vale. The final standings, Erina, the minor premiers, on 31 points. Second, Toukley on 27. Followed by Kincumber 25, Wyong 24. And outside the final four, the entrance 22, Woy Woy 18, Arimba 14, Terrigal 10, Berkeley Vale 7. This Saturday, a place in the grand final goes on the line when Erina lock horns with Toukley in the major semi at Woy Woy. And then on Sunday at Darren Kennedy Oval, it's the minor semi-final between Kincumber and Wyong. Kick-off for both games, 3:05. In the Macarthur, in last Sunday's knockout semi-final, it was the Oaks v Mittagong for the second time in a week. And this time the Tigers way too strong for the Lions, 31 points to 10. And Collegians v Oakdale Workers in a qualifying final, and it was the Bears who prevailed, 50 points to 14. This Sunday, it's all happening at Kirkham Park, Camden at 1:15. Collegians v the Oaks, that is sudden death. Followed by the major semi, it's the minor premiers and defending champions Camden up against Oakdale from 3 o'clock, the winner going straight into the season decider. Back on the coast in the Gong last weekend, week 2 of the playoffs in the minor semi, Dapto 44-10 over De La Salle. In the major semi, West 32-0 over Collies, lifting the Devils into the big dance on September 13. This Saturday, the preliminary final, it's Collies hosting Dapto. Kickoff is 3 o'clock. In Group 7, the final round was Mental Health Awareness Round, and all the away teams had success. Albion Park belting Berry 46-12. Shellharbour 48-4 over Jamboree. Kiama crushed Stingrays 44-6 and Gerringong 46-6 over Nowra. The final standing, Shellharbour, the minor premiers on 27. Second and also on 27, Kiama, Albion Park and Stingrays 3rd and 4th respectively on 25. Then Gerringong 24, Milton 16, and then Jamboree, Nowra and Berry in that order all on 12. Coming up, the minor qualifying final on Saturday at Flinders. That's where Rays take on Gerringong, and followed by the major qualifying final on Sunday at Kiama, where it's the Knights v Albion Park, a 3 o'clock start for both matches. In Group 16, now we've struggled to bring you the final standings in the past couple of weeks, not for the want of trying. The league's portal not always ready when we need it, and for the record, Marimbula Pambula, the minor premiers on 30 points and undefeated until the finals. Second and third respectively, Tathra and Eden, who both finished on 24. Narooma 15, Cooma 14, Bega 12, Bombala 11, Maria 8 and Bateman's Bay on 6. Last weekend, the preliminary final, Marimbula Pambula up against last year's runners-up Eden, and the Tigers no match for the Bulldogs, who bounced back nicely from that loss to Tathra, winning 42-10 after leading 16-4 at the break. The Dogs to now take on the Sea Eagles in the grand final at the Dog Pound this Sunday. In fact, the Dogs in all 3 grades. And as for the Eagles, who had last weekend off, we should acknowledge captain coach Tyron Stevenson, who was named the Group 16 Player of the Season. In Group 9, now, before I go any further, I want to acknowledge the recent passing of Mick Sheedy and his wife Helen, who were tragically killed in a terrible car accident near Canoundra just recently. Now, for those people unaware, Mick was a long-time strapper for the young cherry pickers, and he served on the committee helping the club celebrate its centenary a couple of years ago. A great stalwart, he certainly was, and today on the show we offer our deepest condolences to family and friends. Last weekend in Group 9 in the knockout final, 4v5, Temora defeated Tumut 28-16, so bye-bye Blues, and in the qualifying final, 2v3, Gundagai crushed Young 42-18 at Anzac Park. This Saturday, sudden death for both the Pickers and the Dragons, that game to be played at Alfred Oval. And then on Sunday, the major semi in Wagga at GeoHex, where Kangaroos play Gundagai, the winner straight into the GF. Both games, by the way, start at 2:30. In Group 20, in the final round, DPC 36-18 over TLU. Yanko upset Waratahs 34-30, lifting the Hawks into the finals. Leeton scraped home against Black and Whites 18-16, and West Wyalong 24-18 winners against Yenda. The final standings, DPC 30 points, Waratahs 28, Leeton 24, Hay 21, Yanko 19, Black and Whites 18, Yenda 16, TLU 14 and the Mallee men on 10. Coming up, the opening weekend of the finals. On Saturday, we've got Hay at home to Yanko from 2:35. That is sudden death. And then on Sunday at the X's, Waratahs v Leeton from 2:50, with the Chooks having the weekend off. In the PMP, last weekend, the preliminary finals, Forbes belting Mudgee 34 points to 10 at Spooner, and Dubbo Sims 24 blot over Orange Sims. This Sunday, it's grand final day. Dubbo Sims versus Forbes in first grade. Should be a cracking game, this one. Apex Oval is the venue. Good luck to both teams, and you can expect a massive convoy of black and white coming in from Forbes. And we're not talking about any zebras that could be missing from the Western Plains Zoo. Kickoff is 3 o'clock. In the Woodbridge Cup last weekend, the season finale, Oberon Tigers, 34 points to 8 winners in the grand final over Manildra at Canoundra. Well done to Oberon. In the Castlereagh last weekend, Coolah celebrated in front of their hometown supporters after winning the grand final against Coonabarra Brand. 24-18 was the final score. Well done to the Roos. And ditto Dan Lane, who was the player of the match. In Canberra last Saturday, the major semi, Blues 28-16 over arch rivals Roos. So Blues into the grand final. And in the minor semi-final, Tuggeranong They kept their winning streak going, but it was close, real close. 30 points to 24 over West Belconnen. This Sunday, it's Roos v the Bush Rangers at Gungahlin in the preliminary final from 3 o'clock. The winner to take on the Blues in the big one. Finally, the George Took Shield, the final standings. Well, we couldn't do this last week because the system was down, and believe it or not, that is still the case. Last weekend in the qualifying final at Burrawa, the Rovers 24-10 over Crookwell, and in the knockout semi-final at Harden, the Hawks sneaking home 10 points to 8 against rivals Bynalong. This weekend, firstly on Saturday, we've got the minor premiers Bungendore at home to Burrawa, and then on Sunday, Harden is at Crookwell, and the second of those games is sudden death, and both matches to get underway at 2:30. That's New South Wales and the ACT done and dusted. Coming up, you'll hear from the coach of the team that lifted the trophy in the rum capital of Bundaberg last weekend. Perhaps he had a few bundies after it all happened. We'll ask him about that and more after a quick break here on Bushbeat. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com, and my first guest on the program this week joins us from the rum capital, that's Australia's rum capital of Bundaberg. And what a place it is. They love their rugby league in this part of the world. A terrific city, famous obviously for rum, but in the cane fields of the Wide Bay, where rugby league is very much part of the local landscape. And Antonio Kaufusi, former NRL star, former Super League star, former Kangaroo, played for Tonga. What a CV. And now, on the back of last weekend, he's won a grand final as coach of Waves, which is a pretty famous club there. Antonio, congratulations.
Thanks. Thanks for having me too. Appreciate it.
Mate, how does last weekend winning that grand final stack up with all the things you've achieved in the game? As I say, you played for the green and gold, you represented Tonga, state of origin, a lot of NRL matches, playing for different clubs, playing in the UK. How does this stack up?
Yeah, no, it's pretty special. Obviously, just you talk about bush footy and that as well, but it's the heartbeat of rugby league, to be honest. And some of the few that are lucky to actually make it into NRL, and then some of the guys, this is their pinnacle and that as well. And it's awesome to be on that journey with them.
Now, the team you beat last week, or in the grand final, 42-26 it was, the scoreline over East, the Magpies. To be quite frank, you were the raging hot favourites because your opposition, let's not kid ourselves, for those people unaware, I think they only won a handful of games in the regular season, but they somehow got there to the big dance.
Yeah, they did. I think they finished fifth on the ladder, and they won every game to get to meet us in the grand final. So I think they went into extra time and then golden point. So they played a lot of footy. So we just had to start fast, and I thought we did that in the grand final. I think it was 22-4 at half time, and they come back at us in the second half. But yeah, we managed to hold them off. So we're pretty excited. Well,
Antonio, you make a good point because we follow the scores pretty closely each week here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. And the Magpies the previous week, that was probably a taxing game for them, having to dig deep and obviously to go into extra time. That would have taken a big toll on your opposition, and hence it was a mountain to climb. But they made a game of it.
Yeah, they definitely did. I was out there the week before watching them play, and the longer the game went, I was pretty pleased about that. I was hoping it went at extra time, and it did, and then it went at a golden point. So I thought that would benefit us more, to be fair. But yeah, they were pretty busted, and obviously playing every game, and we had the week off, so we were pretty fresh, and we prepared well, to play them.
Now, tell us about your up-and-coming winger, who was one of the many heroes for your Waves team in the grand final. A young kid coming through. And in fact, he hit the ground running in his very first game in first grade.
Yeah, he did. I actually coach him at school footy and that as well. And he's with he signed with the Parramatta Eels and that as well. And to be fair, he's probably can play A grade all year, but I've kind of held him off a little bit and blooded him. Just gave him a little taste of it, and then opportunities came. Our winger actually got suspended the week before, and he was our top try scorer for the whole competition, and I needed to fill a spot there, and I didn't want to leave the 18s again. So he played that and he pulled up a ride. So he was more than happy to step up and scored three. Scored a hat trick on grand final day. So I think he couldn't get any better. And I think he won the 18 grand final as well. So he had a massive day. For him as well. So, we're pretty excited about him and hoping that he can kick on and in his footy career.
Now, we should actually mention his name. So it's Perotta Dowling, that's his surname, Perotta Dowling?
Yeah, Perotta Dowling. So first name Parker, Perotta Dowling, yeah. So what a name.
Yeah, well, what you're saying, it might be a name that becomes a little bit famous in the years to come. He has got serious ability, this bloke, and Parramatta know about it.
Yeah, he's been down there already to do some of the pre-season with Harold Matts and that as well. He played a couple of games earlier in the year for him, so he's just getting a lot of experience there as well, and brought that back up here to Bundy, and he's played a lot of footy just through school because we play in the Dolphins Cup, did one against all the Rocky schools and that as well. So. I'm hoping that he's got a bit of talent, so fingers crossed that he puts his head down, keep working hard, and we might see him in the future.
Now, Antonio, Bundaberg, famous for its rum, obviously. I've got to ask you, because our listeners will be wondering, how many rumbos did you have after winning the grand final as coach?
Yeah, I reckon I counted 60.
You're kidding. You're kidding.
Yeah, just after the game. So that wasn't Silly Sunday yet. But no, I don't know. To be fair, it was a good.
So it wasn't. So what? It wasn't 60, but you had a few.
I had a few. Yeah, I had a few. So that was good.
Now this
was awesome.
Now, this is your hometown, isn't it? I remember when you first came on the scene, I had the privilege of calling you on Fox and Sky New Zealand going back in the day, and this is the town that you grew up in, and obviously you know full well how big rugby league is in the rum capital of Bundaberg and surrounding communities in that beautiful part of the world.
Definitely. I only started playing, I was a union boy because I grew up in New Zealand before my family made a move here, and we come straight to Bundaberg, and I rocked up at the local club, which is Bundaberg Brothers, the juniors, and I started my league, started playing league there, and then, we love our rugby league here and that as well, so we get around it a fair bit, and it's just good to see anyone that's made it through, it's good to cheer them on as well.
Now, our listeners also would be very aware of the Kaufusi surname. Can you explain to our audience far and wide who's who in the zoo and who's related and who's not, from whether it's yourself, Felice, and whoever?
Yeah, I've got two brothers, so there's three of us. I've got six sisters, but the Felice is a younger brother. Patrick that played as well. He's younger. He's the youngest. He's played as well, and then you got Oregon Kaufusi. That's out at he's playing the Sharks at the moment, and that's no relation. So.
Oh, right. So Oregon is not part of your clan. That we can establish that.
Yes, definitely, but I'll claim him just because he's got the Kaufusi name going around. Can you do that? Or?
Well, I think plenty of rugby league followers have done that on your behalf already.
Awesome, I'll take that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's obviously a great name in rugby league. You must be proud of that legacy because you've all made a contribution, and still doing so. Yeah,
I think when you work hard in that as well, and just good to see, for my brother doing really well, and he's played a long career. My younger brother, he's still playing up in Townsville as well, so in the local league there as well. So, I think hard work that you put in there as well. It gives your family name the lights in the rugby league world.
Now, I checked your date of birth, and it's no secret you've hit the big 40. You actually did sign this year as a player. You could have played, but you didn't play. What's the story? Have you said to yourself, that's actually it now, but I'm going to continue as coach? What are your plans? Yeah,
I'd never actually thought of playing, to be honest. I was fortunate enough when I moved back here, I signed on just in case for injuries, and I won our first grand final in 2018 with the club that I'm coaching now, and I ended up playing the last 5 games in the grand final, and then I always sign myself up just in case of injuries. But our numbers have been really, really good at the club, and it's a bit silly for me to try to take a spot. We've got the guys there that are putting into work and training really hard. So that's an easy decision for me. So.
All right, well, listen, we might leave it there. Antonio Kaufusi, congratulations on your latest success at Salter Oval in lifting that trophy with your mates from Waves, and we wish you well for the off-season and what the future may hold.
Appreciate it, mate. Thanks for having me on here.
There he is, the premiership-winning coach of Waves in the Bundaberg Rugby League, former Kangaroo, former Tongan international, former NRL star, former Super League star, Antonio Kaufusi, joining us here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Stick around, more to come right after this. Welcome back to Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com, and now to our second guest on the program, and he's pretty happy too, no different to Antonio Kaufusi, and that's because he's just won a grand final in Group 19 in the New England of New South Wales. He's been involved with rugby league for a big chunk of his life. His name's Jamie McCormack. He was the coach when Inverell lifted the premiership trophy, last weekend. And Jamie, welcome to the program. You must be, grinning like a Cheshire cat because these sort of things don't happen every day.
No, they don't, mate. No, we're ecstatic here in Inverell. It's been a long time coming. I think 9 years since the last premiership, and we've worked extremely hard over the last 12 months to get the victory on Sunday.
Now, can you paint a picture for our audience around the world? What was it like playing at home against a pretty competitive team from Tingha? They would have brought a lot of supporters, no doubt, to the Sapphire City for this premiership decider. What was it like? Tell us about the atmosphere.
Yeah, the atmosphere was great. You know what bush football was like. They're very staunch with their support. And Tingha's a little community, only about 80 k's out of Inverell itself. And I guess the whole town of Tingha would have come into Inverell for the day. A lot of the Tingha boys actually work and live in Inverell, so it was a real local derby. And I think, it was a really good crowd, really good gate. I'm sure, the Inverell club and the Group 19 area made a lot of money out of the grand final. But importantly for us, we had a lot of support as well. And it was a very memorable day for us.
Well, you know Tingha yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, from your previous days working in country rugby league in development, and I reckon no one would have been in town for the grand final in Tingha because they live and breathe it there, and of course, and I'm sure you can name drop a few players here, but they've really punched above their weight in contributing players to the elite level, and I'm sure you're happy to go through the roll call.
Yeah, no, look, it's amazing. It's a very small town that people would just normally drive through between Guyra and Inverell, but been super competitive in their day. Preston Campbell was at the grand final. I saw him go into the Tingha dressing shed, so he would have had some words of advice for the boys. And Nathan Blacklock comes out of Tingha, and some of the excitement machines, and obviously Jaden Campbell now playing for the Gold Coast Titans. So, great little community. Love their rugby league, as do the Inverell Hawks, and it made for a very good day.
And what about for Inverell? What does this mean for the town and the Sapphire City? It's one of the bigger towns in the footprint of Group 19. You're probably always on a hiding to nothing because people expect the big towns to do well, don't they?
They do, yeah. We're well supported by the RSM, the local club here. And they just think because of the size of the town that we should be at the top of the table every year. But, it doesn't happen. The boys, this day and age in particular, are happy to move around a little bit and look for success wherever they can. Definitely. I'm sure, our supporters were over the moon. They were, super ecstatic. A few of our boys had played in grand finals but had been beaten in grand finals, so had never won one. So they were, they were desperate to win this one. And like I said, thankfully we got away with it.
I've got to say that bush footy has its challenges. That's not lost on you. You've seen plenty of this in your time in bush footy. Can I ask you about the situation with Group 19, with players not turning up for games, forfeits, the battlers of the competition? How difficult is it to have a sustainable competition when you look at the big picture and to make sure that clubs don't fold and to make sure you've got a robust competition?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes back to community support, doesn't it? It takes money to run clubs, with the strapping tape and registrations and everything like that. So communities, really rely on those supporters and those sponsors. But I was quite surprised. I'd been away for 15 years, moved back here 12 months ago, and I probably expected the competition to be a little weaker than what it was. I was pleasantly surprised that it was a very competitive competition. We lost one game, and that was to Uralla in round one, and the Uralla Inverella Tigers, I think, come third overall. The Tinga boys pushed us all the way. Glen Innes were quite strong with a young group of boys this year. Guyra made a resurgence into the competition. Group 19 hadn't had reserve grade for a couple of years, but that was back on the table again this year. I think 6 clubs out of the 8 clubs in the competition provided reserve grade teams, which was great. So there's a lot of blokes out there that still want to play rugby league. Not all of them want to train that much, but they still want to be involved and play rugby league. I think the scariest part for someone like myself to come back, we only had 3 under-18 teams in the competition, Inverell, Uralla and Glen Innes were the premiers. So that's disappointing because, as we know, if there's no underbelly moving forward, the seniors will be affected in years to come.
How do we fix that?
Good question. Society's completely different, isn't it, to someone like myself who's into his 50s. We just lived and breathed rugby league, where kids today, they have all different options and they move away from country towns for better opportunities, education and so on. And, depletes little towns of players that used to be there. New South Wales Rugby League, we just need to get on board and push the kids to, I guess, the connection between our junior leagues into our senior leagues. And make the transition from, I guess, under 16 junior rugby league into under 18s really important in all areas, I believe.
Now, Jamie, I'm anything but a climate expert. Tell us about the match conditions this year, because it was an unusually cold winter. I have to ask the question: did you get to play, or your players get to play in the snow this season?
No, thank God. We actually had a home game against Glen Innes, which was a catch-up match that had been deferred earlier in the year. And we played at Inverell, and it was freezing cold. Actually, at half-time, the game was a nothing game. When we were sitting first in the competition, Glen Innes were fifth, and the outcome didn't really alter anything in the competition. So our game was called off. We led 6-4 at halftime, and both teams decided to call it off at halftime. It was just too cold. But at the same time, Tinga were out at home, which again is only about 50 k's out the road. They were at home playing against Uralla in sleet and snow and the worst possible conditions you can imagine.
But it still went on.
It still went on. It was very important. Uralla had to beat Glen Innes for an opportunity to play second and third. So the game had some importance. So they played all the way through the snow, and some of the photographs it would have been a very cold day for everybody involved.
What about your own story? Can you enlighten us in terms of your life in rugby league? You used to be at the Gold Coast Titans, and they're undergoing some serious changes now. I'm sure that's not lost on you. And before that, part of your journey, you were involved with Country Rugby League before the merger with New South Wales.
Yeah, I was very lucky, good 25 years ago, to get a job with the Country Rugby League as a development officer and manager of Northern Division. So basically Group 19 and Group 4 up to Tamworth and all around those areas. So I had 10 years of doing that, which was, super enjoyable with the Country Rugby League. Great bunch of people and true stalwarts of the game, Country Rugby League people. And, I really enjoyed that, and then got an opportunity to move up to Queensland on the Gold Coast, where I was offered an education job, which Queensland Rugby League have people that go around and do coaching courses and make sure that everybody's accredited and get people into rugby league. So I enjoyed that for a year or two, and then I was lucky enough that John Cartwright at the time was the head coach of the Gold Coast Titans, tapped me on the shoulder and said, would you like to come into the Gold Coast Titans and become the pathways manager? So I spent the next 10 years there, and 4 or 5 different NRL coaches I was lucky enough to work with, and did a lot of junior recruitment for the Gold Coast Titans. And my days were up after 10 years, so we decided to move back to the country. And I'm 55 years of age. I wasn't going to be involved in rugby league, but rugby league's a disease where there's no cure. and I couldn't help myself, and I thought, we'll go and coach bush football again for another 12 months.
Jamie, just one final question. You mentioned your time at the Gold Coast. What about, and they have made some changes with Hannay coming in and Sattler, obviously, and LaFranchi. I'm sure that's not lost on you. But what about the Newcastle Knights? Some changes yet to come there for the Knights, but they have announced that they're going to strengthen their ties to bush footy, including your competition. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it should have been done years and years ago. The Newcastle Knights are obviously the closest NRL club in the New South Wales area to that region. And I know Pete Stevens works for New South Wales Rugby League out of Tamworth, and he's super excited with the connection to the Northern Tigers and the region. And let's hope that they make good on their, the claim that they'll come out and help with education and support some junior footballers in the area. And a connection with an NRL club is super important to country areas.
Jamie McCormack, congratulations on your success with the Hawks in Inverell, and enjoy the off-season.
Oh, I will. Let's go fishing. Thanks, mate.
There he is, Jamie McCormack, the premiership-winning coach of the Inverell Hawks, speaking to us here on rugbyleague.com's Country League show Bushbeat. We'll take a break, back with more right after this. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com and our statewide scoreboard for Queensland. But before we get into that, congratulations to premiership-winning Yeppoon Seagulls captain Sam Holzheimer, the winner of Rockhampton's very prestigious Ollie Howden medallion. And what a dream finish for the modern-day Gulls great after playing his final game of rugby league. And worth noting that in more than 7 decades, only 7 players in Rocky League history have won this more than once. So again, congratulations to Sam Holzheimer, who also won this award for best and fairest in the league back in 2018. Let's now go to far north Queensland and Cairns. Last Sunday, the preliminary final at Stan Williams. Suburbs cooked the Chooks. The Cockatoos no doubt cock a hoop after beating Atherton 36-10. Suburbs to now play Brothers in the grand final this Saturday under lights at Barlow Park. Kickoff is 7 o'clock. Good luck to both teams. Across the other side of the Cardwell Range in Townsville last Sunday at Jack Mansky, Western Lions knocked off Herbert River 42-24 in what was sudden death, so bye-bye Crushers. And South's demolishing Brothers 32 points to 10, catapulting the Redmen into the grand final. This Sunday, the preliminary final at Jack Mansky, where Brothers play Western Lions. Kickoff is 3:45. And the winner, of course, to take on Souths in the big one. In Mackay, late last week, grand final bound Souths were mourning the passing of Shark stalwart Gary Whips, who was a gun trainer, let me tell you, back in the day. In fact, he served as one of the original trainers for the Mackay Cutters when they joined the Queensland Cup. A great bloke, Whipsy, and my condolences to those who also knew him. Last weekend in Mackay, Whipsy's old club enjoying the weekend off. Brothers and Moranbah squared off in a hotly contested preliminary final, and it was Brothers who got the chocolates, 24-22 over the Miners. Brothers to now take on the Sharkies in the season finale this Saturday. Kickoff is 6 o'clock, and the venue, BB Prince Stadium. In Bundaberg, as you heard earlier, success for minor premiers Waves in the season finale at Salter Oval, coached by former NRL star, former Super League star and one-time Kangaroo, Antonio Kaufusi. The Tigers lifting the trophy after beating East 42-26 in the grand final. Well done to Waves. In the Northern Districts last Sunday, Childers was the venue for the preliminary final, and South Callan belting Miriam Vale 40 points to 10. Gary Larson would not be happy, and the Sharks to now tackle the Devils in the premiership decider. And worth noting that the Sharkies will have home ground advantage in the Northern Districts this coming Sunday. Kickoff is 2:40 p.m. In the South Burnett, the Cherbourg Hornets. The mighty Hornets from Cherbourg, they chalked up a hard-fought grand final victory last weekend. Cherbourg defeating the Kingaroy Red Ants 38-28 at Cherbourg to lift the trophy for the second time in 3 years. Well done to the Hornets. On the Sunshine Coast, last weekend, week 2 of the playoffs, in the minor semi, Coolum beat Kawana 22-16, and in the major semi, Stanley River 26-22 over Maroochydore. This Sunday from 5:30, the preliminary final between the Swans and the Colts at Sunshine Coast Stadium. The winner to play Stanley River in the big one. In Ipswich, we had Redbank Plains versus the Jets in a qualifying final last weekend, and the Jets beat the Bears 38-24. And it was do or die in that other finals game between Brothers and the Fassifern Bombers. Full-time score in that one, Brothers 28, Bombers 22. So the Bombers now already planning for season 2026. This Sunday, Redbank Plains v Brothers at 4 o'clock in the preliminary final at the North Ipswich Reserve, and the winner to play the Jets in the GF. In Toowoomba last weekend, Pittsworth was the venue for the elimination final, Danes 26, Valleys 30. So well done, Roosters. They are still alive and kicking. And in the qualifying final at Platts Oval, Wattles 36, Brothers 16. This Saturday, Brothers host Valleys in the minor semi-final at 6:30. And then on Sunday, the major semi, Gatton, which has been the team to beat all season, of course, the Mighty Hawks. They're at home to Wattles at 2:30. Finally, on the Glitter Strip, that's the Gold Coast, for those people not familiar with that lingo. Last weekend, the knockout final, Runaway Bay, 28-22 over Helensvale. And in the qualifying final, Currumbin, 32-20 over Chugan. This weekend, we've got Chugan v Runaway Bay in sudden death at Betty Diamond at 3 o'clock on Saturday. And at the same time on Sunday, Burleigh host Currumbin. Coming up, our final segment, we check out Victoria, South Australia, WA and the Northern Territory. That's after the break here on Bushbeat on rugbyleague.com. Welcome back to Bushbeat here on rugbyleague.com, and our final segment where we look at the greatest game of all in 3 states plus the Northern Territory, where the grand final is happening this Saturday night, likewise in WA. Firstly, Victoria, the Melbourne Storm Premiership last weekend in the semi-finals. The Casey Warriors, 38-20 winners against Sunbury Tigers, and Northern Thunder, 22-20 over Truganina Rabbitohs. This Saturday, it's Warriors v Bunnies. In the preliminary final, Haynes Drive Reserve is the venue, and the winner, of course, gets a date with Destiny and a showdown with the Northern Thunder in the grand final. In regional Victoria and the Goulburn Murray, last Sunday, the preliminary final at Mooroopna in the Goulburn Valley, Shepparton Eagles crushing Corowa Cougars 74 points to 4. Shep to now take on Tumba, that's Tumbarumba, in the grand final at Glenrowan this coming Sunday, September 7. In South Australia, up the Wars. Last Sunday in the grand final at Eyre Park, the Warriors, they defeated the minor premiers Black Swans 22 points to 10. Well done, Warriors, in what has certainly been a challenging year for our game in the festival state. In WA, in the Fuel to Go and Play Premiership, the reign of North Beach is finally over. In the preliminary final last weekend, Willagee Bears beating the Sea Eagles at North Beach 12 points to 6. So for the grand final, we have South Perth versus the Bears this Saturday at Dorrien Gardens. A huge achievement it is for the Bears, their first grand final in 41 years. Great for the club, great for the competition. Finally, the top end, and out of the Dabsco Premiership, congratulations to Litchfield Bears 5'8" Matthew Wilmington, who's won the Frank Johnson Medal for the player of the season in the top end. And the finals continued last weekend. The preliminary final, Brothers defeating Nightcliff 30 points to 24. So the Fish to take on Litchfield in the decider. That'll be under lights at league headquarters on Saturday night. Good luck to both the Bears and Brothers. That's our show for this week. Thank you to our special guests, Antonio Kaufusi and Jamie McCormack, who joined us from Bundaberg and Inverell respectively. And as always, thanks to Steve Mascord in London for pulling this all together. And thanks to you, the listener, for tuning in. Don't forget, we're on the socials, rugbyleague.com, on various platforms, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube. Give us a follow, give us a like. And finally, to all the dads out there, happy Father's Day for Sunday. For now, this is Costo signing off on Bushbeat. Stick around. The news is next.